My name is Ben Olguín, and I am a professor in the English department. And I currently hold the Robert and Lisa Erickson Presidential Chair in English. Well, I'm in the English department, and within the English department, really I work in the field that is known as literary and cultural studies. In literary and cultural studies, what we really do is we examine literature across time and place, but we've also evolved the discipline to incorporate the arts in a broader context. So we study film, we study in some courses musicology, for instance. You know, music involves lyrics. Lyrics are poetry. It's a very natural fit. Um, and to a certain degree, we also examine the visual vernacular, visual forms of writing. I mean, we can do everything from a glossed text from a medieval era to graffiti art in an urban barrio. So the field is very expansive. So in English, you study English literature from the medieval period to the present, um, but you also study discourse across the literary and popular arts. Well, the thing that's interesting about literature is that in literary and cultural studies specifically, is that it is at the intersection of multiple disciplines. It is informed by multiple disciplines, and it's at the intersection. So when you study literary and cultural studies, when you pursue that field as a major, what you're really doing is examining aesthetics, poetics, which is the politics of a model of art or aesthetics, and you study ethics as well. You study history, you study politics, you study human culture broadly defined, you study specific historical periods. So, in all throughout, what we're doing really in this field and what students would do if they major or minor in English is study art and politics across time and place with attention to the beauty of art and the complexity of art, but also to the complexity of the political context in which this art is produced and consumed. Well, again, in our field, in the English department and in literary and cultural studies, research takes a lot of different shapes. At one level, we offer, creative writing, and you learn the craft of writing, poetry, prose, fiction, nonfiction, etc. Um, but we also study creative critical discourse. There are courses where you can take or you can undertake study in writing that is both reflexive, that is loosely defined autobiographical, but also engage in political issues and in dialogue with various other writers and or issues. And you can also, of course, and this is really what the literary and cultural studies field is defined by, you can also study um, the literature that's been produced by people throughout the world. Um, it could take the form of poetry, it could take the form of prose, it could be theater, and significantly in our department here at UCSB, it is very international. You have half the faculty, or probably more than half the faculty, are international from probably 7 or 8 different countries and different historical, cultural, political backgrounds. It is an unusual uh, mix that works to expand the possibilities, the range of possibilities for students to study Chinese literature, Asian Pacific Islands literature, Latina and Latino literature, African literature, Canadian literature, Western European literature and art. The possibilities are endless in our department, and the combinations are endless. That is to say that in our department, we really are a comparative literature department to a certain degree, without the extra language requirements, though we do encourage and have a requirement for foreign language. Well, the thing that I like most about this field, the literary arts and literary and cultural studies, is that it is, as I said, at the intersection of so many disciplines that you can really enter into the study of human culture, the study of art from a lot of different perspectives. And for me, as an undergrad and as a graduate student and also as a faculty, I was able to use this discipline to do research that mattered to me and to my family, to my community, and I think to people throughout the world. And specifically, this involved work on prisoner literature. Um, Unfortunately, members of my community have been incarcerated at very high rates, disproportionately high rates. There are a lot of issues related to that, and my study of literature enabled me to explore that. In fact, I have a book and articles about this very issue. And it was very important for me to produce that book because it was a book not just about the literary and cultural studies that's being produced from prison. It was an opportunity for us to listen to prisoners, what they were saying and writing, to see if we can gain another perspective on the entire context that surrounds incarceration in this country and in other countries. So what I like to say is that research in this field really can involve what we call me search, that is, research focused on oneself. But it doesn't end at oneself. It's just the path to really make bigger observations. But it can start with the self. It can start with your personal concerns. And literature really invites that. Literary and cultural studies is probably the only discipline, maybe except for the visual arts, an MFA or undergraduate art major. Really, aside from the arts, literature is probably the discipline that is most inviting of me search. The thing that's really important for students to remember is that even as we very, very much encourage what I've called me search, that is research about oneself that has broader implications for the world at large, right? Um, is that it's still very, very rigorous. It is intensely rigorous. Um, it is metacritical. That is to say that this is not a class where we just engage in navel gazing and just, this is not just a fun class, though it is fun. It's not just an easy class, though reading literature involves a lot of pleasure. It should. It actually is hard work because we are asking big and difficult questions. We are really interrogating the writers as artists, but also as producers of political discourse. So it is a lot of work, and you do a lot of reading, and it is going to be intense. Well, to be completely honest, I can't even believe they pay me for this job. For really, it's um, I get to come to work every day and read and learn with students, and that's the most important part. Learning with students. I'm a lifelong learner, and I take the approach that when we go into class and we're studying culture, we're gonna discover new things together. And every class has a different dynamic because it includes different people. And the thing that keeps this fresh is that students are coming with different lived experiences, different cultural practices, different musical tastes, political positions, etc. And they bring all that into a classroom and they create a unique dynamic that exists only that day. and it's just a fresh experience. It's like going to a concert and hearing a lot of different notes that all sounds really wonderful, and you feel enriched afterwards. And usually, throughout the end of a course, there are very many views I thought I had clear that get challenged, and they continue to evolve. So that is exciting. It's a lifelong learning experience. So that's what keeps me as a professor. I went into this field because it, as I said, enabled me to explore things that were very important to me, but also enabled me to examine very important political and cultural issues throughout the world and in specific places in the world through the literary arts and cultural studies, which I said is at the intersection of multiple disciplines. If I were in a different discipline, I might only be able to use certain methods allowed in that discipline. This discipline has absorbed many other disciplines: anthropology, sociology, psychology, history. And this has enabled us to really have a vigorous, eclectic, interdisciplinary understanding of art and human culture, and in a bigger picture, political history as well. Yeah, the one thing that I would say to all students is that allow yourself to explore a lot of different majors, a lot of different interests, and leave open the possibility of a double major or a major and two minors, and allow yourself to look at a lot of different programs and change and switch and not think that that's a bad thing. It's okay. Because the decisions you make now, really over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, become a pathway for the rest of your life. And it's best to change now than later. 20 years when you're in a career that is not working for you, or you're not in a career because you didn't make the choices now that would facilitate that. And as you're considering and thinking about your major, your minor, your career options, make sure that it's something you want to get up to every day and do, and not something that's just going to enable you to make money to live a life that you think you want to live. Because if you do pursue that career, you will be able to find work. Some are more lucrative than others, but on balance, you will be able to cobble together a life. And the best thing in this search, in this experience as students, is that you get to choose something that you're going to want to do, at least as far as you know now, for a good portion of the rest of your life. So take this seriously, check out a lot of different majors, and keep in mind that this is your opportunity to make the university work for you, and not just some regimen that requires you to jump through one hoop or another. There's some of that, but you can claim ownership of the university so it works for you.